So I'm down to my basics. I've got my shift, my petticoat, my stockings. Did I show you my stockings are gartered? They should come up over your knees. Mine tend to roll because of my thighs are a little bit larger than my knees are. I garter below my knees. You can garter above your knees. Totally has to do with the topography of the leg and how it's most comfortable for you. All right, so now I'm going to be putting on a gown, and I'm going to start with this is called a false rump. This shape of a rump, which kind of looks like one of those like seat cushions you put on a deck chair, is a very 1770s kind of style. The 50s-ish are more the bum roll. The skirts tend to get a little bit fuller towards the back in the late 60s and 70s, so this is a little bit more appropriate. It does come around to the hips a little bit, but most of the fullness is in the back. I'm going to put a second under petticoat on just to give myself some fullness. And this one, when you're wearing bum supports, the petticoats need to be different lengths in the front and the back. And depending on where your supports are, they need to be shaped so that the hem is even. The hem should be parallel to the floor. I should probably tie this over here. Okay, so this is a striped linen. Under petticoats were usually older outer petticoats that were no longer in a shape to be seen, and so then were just used as like layers. You can hem them a little bit shorter if you want to. This one's a little bit shorter than the one I just had on. This one's wool. This is a really, really nice lightweight worsted. And in runaway ads, which appear in period newspapers talking about lower class people running away or stealing things or things like that, they mention worsted a lot. Oh, this is inside out, whatever. I'm gonna go with it, it's inside out. So this is worsted wool. Worsted is a kind of, it's a kind of weave. It means it has a harder thread versus a woolen, which is kind of fluffier. Woolens tend to be warmer because they trap more air and hold it close to you as insulation. And worsteds are just flat and solid. So this is actually the way that this is woven. It's so lightweight. I don't know that you can even see it, but it's like, if I go like this, like you can see through it. Neck handkerchiefs can be worn in so many different ways. I've showed you tucked in, I've showed you out. This one I'm gonna do a variation where it's tucked in the front and out in the back. If it has a border, you tend to see them worn that way. And that's not if it has a border, like when you see them out, usually you see a border on them. So that just means to me that most handkerchiefs had a printed border, meaning that they weren't cut from cloth. They were manufactured to be this, not part of that that's been cut down into this. But sometimes you do see that. Okay, so now I have a stomacher. And this is a cool little garment because you can change your stomacher and your gown looks completely different even though you haven't made a new gown. You see these either plain or decorated. Sometimes they can be embroidered. I'm using sewing pins to pin this to my stays right now. I have little tabs on it so that I don't have to pin through the actual stomacher itself. And I'm gonna leave that part up. And I just did the changing of classes. Where did I put my white apron? Right here. So I'm gonna show you my fancy lady. I usually either pin straight down or straight up, just because it doesn't need that much tension to stay, it just has to stay put. But anything that has tension that's pulling away, like a fitted bodice or a fitted gown, the hairpin pinning tends to work better. All right, so all right, this is my multi-purpose wool gown. I'm gonna pull my finger out of the back and fluff that. I have a little mirror next to my camera so I can see what's going on. This is called an English gown. It has pleats in the back. The way that this is constructed, if you've never made one before, it's actually a whole cut of cloth from neck to hem that's then been pleated to fit the back bodice, and there's a fitted lining inside that's draped to your body. These are incredibly versatile, like incredibly versatile. The style of this gown goes from 1740s to 1780s, virtually unchanged. There's little cosmetic differences, like the size of the pleats in the back are slightly smaller towards later in the century. And my hair's falling down. And the robings, these things on the front can either be folded or attached. Sometimes once you get past 1768, 1770-ish, sometimes you see gowns that omit the stomacher and close in the front. And then in the 80s, they mostly just close in the front. But this, you can see if I pull it nice and tight, there's no wrinkles or lines because my stays have made it so I'm not lumpy. I'm just like a cone. So I'm going to go in, twist, and push. This is the part that takes the longest. And honestly, like, I didn't know how to do this when I started doing this. I just had to like figure it out. I don't even think there were like good YouTube video tutorials when I started doing this. I remember staying in a hotel room with Blair once, being like, I'm gonna look this up. One thing that you need to know about, I suppose, is that not all gowns were made from scratch for a person. There's a very, very large secondhand clothing market, both in England and in the colonies at this time. So an upper class lady might change her gowns with the fashion, and then her lady's maid might take it and wear it for a year or two and then decide to sell it. So a lower class person would have access to nice gowns. They just might not be the most accurate or the most well fitted. A caraco is just a shorter, it's this with a shorter skirt. So it's just this, only quite a little bit less formal. So the same person who would wear a gown could potentially wear a caraco, just in a less formal situation. So like day wear. That being said, they tend to be a little bit more French, but I don't want to like put that as a blanket statement. French people tended to wear jackets during the day and gowns during the evening a little bit more, depending on your class. But then, there's a lot to answer that question. If you have a caraco and you want to wear it, you're probably fine wearing it. English people did have them and wear them. They did have very fancy ones that upper class people wore. They also had ones that were worn by lower class people as like a nicer garment. It just doesn't have the fabric to it. So, all right, I could fiddle with the pinning on this all day, but I'm not going to. So here's my, I'll make it pretty. A redingote is its own garment. It's called a riding habit, and basically it's a man's coat that's been fitted to a woman's shape and is meant to be worn when engaging in manly activities like riding or hunting or sometimes just like walking. It's its own animal, and it's very like fashionable and stylized. It's not likely that a regular person would own one, but an upper class lady might have one for sporting. It's not an everyday garment. A redingote is not an everyday garment. Okay, so I'm in a gown. It does not have cuffs or sleeve ruffles. That was intentional. This can time travel. This gown right here can take me from the 50s to the 80s with very little adaptation. I've made it kind of nice. I've got my apron under my skirt, which means I'm not cooking right now. If I was lower class, it would be covering everything. And it could be the checked one. My pile's on the floor, sorry if I'm pointing to it. It could be the checked one that I had on earlier. I have a patterned neck handkerchief, which looks very pretty, but also signifies that I am not super wealthy, by the same reverse logic that led the lower class person to buy it. So I'm equating this to when I was in college. They gave us our ID cards and they gave us lanyards to put them on. And the only people, we were also excited about them that we used to wear them to show that we were like grown-up college students, but the only people that wore the lanyards were the freshmen, so you could pick them out and you would know who the younger kids were because we were trying to look cool like the older kids. So this is kind of like what's going on with the neck handkerchiefs. Like the printed neck handkerchiefs were like, the lower class people were like, oh, I can afford this beautiful cotton that the upper class people are wearing. But because they're wearing it like this, they're signifying themselves as lower class. You see a lot of depictions of housemaids, like people cooking and stuff with sleeve ruffles. I don't have mine on because they are a 60s to 70s thing. And if I'm going to be doing earlier French and Indian War, the style was more cuffs. The other thing that can happen is because I'm 35, I might, my persona, because I'm not playing younger than 35, might also be adopting or keeping styles from my youth when I felt very like pretty and attractive, which is, I equate that to the people who like went to high school in the 90s and were like super hot and had like feathered hair and are now in their late 40s and they still have feathered hair. That's how they felt the most attractive. And so they've hung on to that style. Same thing happens with 18th century stuff. So you feel attractive, so you keep that style, or you're familiar with it, or you like it. So there's even evidence, or like there's a correspondence, and this is where I fail as a historian because I know what I've read, I just can't remember where I saw it. There's a correspondence with an upper class lady in England, and she's talking with her milliner, and she writes a letter to say she wants things trimmed in the old style. So she's making a new gown, but she wants it to have cuffs rather than falling ruffs because she likes them better. So here's my fancy hat. So now I'm a little bit upper class and I'm wearing a gown. This gown, this like heavy duty wool gown, I'm going to encourage people who are having an English persona, don't spend too much time on Caracos and jackets because they're limited in what you can wear them for. I can wear this gown, I mean, obviously I have to fix the pinning, but I can wear this gown accessorized in different ways to a ball. I can wear it in the fields. I can wear it in the kitchen. I can wear it to market. I can wear it. It goes everywhere. It time travels. Like I just have to change accessories and I'm good to go. With this, let me see, I can put my breast knot back on and I'm like, I look pretty fancy. But like if I tuck up my petticoats and like that, and I tuck it up in here, if I put on my pinball, it looks different. Like I wanted to show you mitts too. We're kind of rushing, but here's mitts and what they would look like with a gown. They do not have to match. They did not really care about matching back then. So the same thing we talked about with the bonnet. It's the same shape. It's the same fabric. They're just like slightly nicer and better trimmed if you're upper class, or they're missing the trimming and a little bit battered if you're lower class. Mitts for upper class ladies tended to wear mitts that were either silk or leather. Lower classes, you see more linen, you see wool. You also see knitted. Upper class ladies don't tend to wear knitted mitts, but lower class ladies do. And this is a finely knitted, like stockings, almost like stockings with the feet cut off, not chunky knits. Somebody asked about how to wear hats. I have a hat. This is a silk covered hat. This is appropriate for pretty much anybody that could afford the silk. You see actually women who are mentioned in runaway ads, so lower class people mentioned as having silk covered straw hats. This is covered with an embroidered silk. They're to shade your face and they tilt up in the back. So it's over the front of your hair. I have a hair cushion on. I'm going to put it right on my hair cushion. So it goes right on the hair cushion. The ties are underneath and they tie behind my head. A mistake that I see people making with hats is they'll put the ribbons on top and then they'll tie them under their chin so that the hat kind of makes a tunnel and it looks like a taco. Don't go full taco. It shouldn't be like super flat. The back might tilt up a little bit, but it's not going to fold in half, and just a little bit. So that is good. All right, so this is my corsage pin. You can also use a hat pin. There are several merchants that sell them. I know Sign of the Gray Horse sells them. Somebody else has them. James Elamode might have them. I'm working on them. I just can't find a good source. But I use my corsage pin, and I have a cushion in my hair. So what I'm going to do is actually very carefully pin it to my hair cushion, and it should be good. The giant, super decorative Victorian hat pins, no, but I have one in here. This is fine. What's more common is what you see is the shorter pins, like I have the corsage pins, and you use like 3 of them. What's in my hair right now is 2 dollar store hair donuts that have been cut in half and sewn together. That's what this is.